Well, before you draw on your silver or brass discs, you want to get some steel wool, and I've got this 00, whatever that is, I guess is how fine it is, and I'm just going to lightly remove any oil, film, dirt, fingerprints, whatever. I'm going in one direction on the metal, just very lightly rubbing the steel wool on the surface upon which I am going to draw. And you can kind of see a little bit of gunk on that. And if you happen to be drawing something with your permanent marker and you don't like it, you can also use the steel wool to remove what you've drawn and draw something new. And do that. Just take the little top layer off there. That looks good. And I still see a little bit of gunk on it. I'm going to keep going. A little bit. There we go. Because otherwise the acid won't etch properly if you don't do that first. And I've already done it with all of these discs. I'm doing this over my laptop, and I probably shouldn't do that because I'm getting little pieces of steel wool over the top of the laptop. But I just want to show you what I'm doing there. And then they're all ready to draw. Alright, so when it's ready, and now my pen doesn't want to work, there we go. Get a Sharpie and start drawing whatever it is that you want to acid etch. For this silver one, I'm going to try to draw Mr. Owl. Hannah Rutherford's Mr. Owl. Hannah from Yogg's Cast. Let's see if I can come up with a good Mr. Owl. Pressed up against you, you touch a fire, your hand of promise. Who fought in my heart? Now they're black in silence. Your touch of memory, hand is missing now. It's gone from my life. Why can't I feel you? Why aren't you holding me? The heart your hand once grasped brought life to my soul. I can't reach you. Your presence vacant. Dark skies in my life. But wait till I'm there. Alright, you're going to want your ferric chloride acid and your baking soda to neutralize it, a roll of packing tape, and gloves because you do not want to touch the acid. You're going to use a glass container that you're never going to use for anything else, no food, no nothing. Once you've started doing acid baths in it, you don't want to cook with it or anything. So this is a glass container that I only use for doing this project. Alright, and then I'm going to stick these 2 strips of the packing tape. I want to make sure that it's stuck down really good, because the packing tape on the back of these is going to keep the acid from getting on the back. You just want it to eat away at the front, not at the back. So that's going to protect the back of those when I set it in the acid. Alright, now I'm going to lay these face down in the acid bath. I'm going to make sure there's no bubbles or anything. And I'm going to stick the edges. The tape kind of holds them suspended in the acid. Alright. And then you're going to let it sit for an hour if it's new acid. If it's older acid, it might take an hour and a half to 2 hours. Alright, I'm going to remove them from the acid very carefully. I'm going to put them in a sink, and I'm going to neutralize the acid with baking soda. Alright. Now once you've neutralized the acid, it should be safe to rinse down your sink. You don't want to rinse large amounts of acid down the sink, but small amount that's on these and it's neutralized, you should be fine, or so I've been told. Alright, so I've neutralized the acid. I've rinsed them off very carefully. I've cleaned out my sink. Now, word of caution, I have a porcelain sink, and it's kind of a messed up sink, so I don't really mind doing this in my kitchen sink. But if you have a nice stainless steel sink or a nice porcelain sink, you might not want to do this in your nice sink. You might want to do this in a garage sink, or some other sink that you don't mind getting stained or a little bit messed up. But there we go, and there's still a little bit of ink on there, and that's fine because we can take that off when we polish and hammer and all of that. Alright, I'm going to leave Mr. Owl in there just a little bit longer because I'm doing him on silver, or nickel silver, and nickel silver is harder than copper and brass. If you're doing copper and brass, they're softer and they will etch faster. But silver, to get a nice deep etch, you might need to leave it in there longer than the others. Alright, so I'm going to take the steel wool, the same steel wool I used before, and I'm going to go over this one more time. And this is to remove the last bit of ink that might be on there, and any of the stickum from the tape that might be stuck on the back. You can remove it with the steel wool. Now, if you want to use blue gloves for this part, you can, because if you can see here, it's sort of all this little gray gunk comes off from the steel wool. If you don't want that all over your hands, you can use the gloves for this part. Alright, so now we're getting that. Nothing on the back. And you can do that for all your pieces. Alright, we've moved into my studio, or what used to be my studio. I'm in the process of moving, relocating. I'm going to take a little bit of fine sandpaper, and I'm just going to sand all of these little bits and pieces. Now you might notice, I don't know if you can see it there, there's a slight edge, little edge around there. I didn't have to do anything to make that happen. I didn't have to draw a marker on it. Just for some reason it does that when it etches. I don't have to worry about that. But if you want to block off more of an edge than that, you can mask off more of an edge on things. Like if it's something square, you can use more plastic tape around the edge, or you can take your marker and you can color in if you want a wider border than that. But that one will happen naturally on its own. So I'm going to sit and I'm going to sand these. And that's just to make it come out a little bit nicer. You don't have to sand it if you don't want to, since you already did the steel wool, but you can if you want to. And I'm going to rivet these onto copper. And I'm going to dome them. So that's what's going to happen next.